This week on the Travel Show,
the gadgets that could get us back on the road. New solutions for ancient problems.
This thing is so much better than any of us can do.
Here he comes.
And Kangaroo Island bounces back.
Bring you milk? It's been awesome to see, the resilience of the Australian wildlife.
hi, welcome to the show, coming to you this week from an eerily quiet London City airport. Hence why I'm allowed to talk to you from the actual runway. And take a look at this. This is bonkers. Normally, this would be buzzing with planes taking off and landing. But as we all know, travel around the world has pretty much stopped. But nevertheless, we are going to do our best to try and keep you all inspired until travel resumes once again. But until then, stick with us and hopefully we'll be out on our adventures very soon.
Let's face it, 2020 hasn't been a good year for travel. A year of lockdowns, border closures and bans.
But don't worry, because behind the scenes, the travel industry is buzzing with exciting gadgets and innovations to get us all back on the road again.
From protective seat design to COVID-destroying UV light swords. But the thing with the biggest impact in the short term is testing. And I've come to London City Airport to find out how it could work.
There will be a testing regime in place prior to Christmas. Testing will take place once you've arrived back into the UK. You will go to a testing centre and get tested, and if that test is negative, then you'll be able to be released from quarantine. However, as the industry, we really do wish to see a departures testing protocol. And what that would mean is that passengers would be tested before they fly. It would mean that a quarantine period when you arrive is no longer required.
What are the main challenges you foresee with all of these processes?
Capacity is one. If we're requiring to actually test significant numbers of passengers on site before they fly, we will need to find space to do that. There will need to be trained staff available. We think that's going to take some time, but we're very confident that we can do that. And we are hopeful that by next summer, we'll be approaching some degree of normality.
But as testing and even vaccinations become more common, there's a whole load of new questions. Like, how do you trust that the person traveling next to you is COVID safe?
Common Pass is a health pass that lets people securely and privately share their COVID status across international borders, whether that's testing or eventually vaccination. The challenge right now is the current system for ensuring that somebody does not have COVID, who's sitting next to me or who's crossing a border, is a piece of paper that was got from a lab. There's no standard format for that paper, and it can easily be falsified or even counterfeit. With Common Pass, we have a way to know that this is coming from a certified lab. So what happens is when you're preparing to travel, you'll say, I'm flying from London City Airport to New York. You'll pull out the Common Pass app. It will tell you that you have to fulfill particular requirements. And when you have fulfilled all those criteria, it generates a QR code, which then you can show at the entrance to the airport, the aircraft, or at immigration in the United States.
How do you keep people's personal health data safe?
Common Pass is a nonprofit organization. We don't actually have access to your data. You control your data. You control who gets to see it. It is on your phone and at the source of where the data is. We don't have any access to that. Nobody has any access to that.
Common Pass is hoping to become available in the new year, but some countries' entry requirements don't end at the airport.
Take a look at this. It's a pretty simple device, a wristband. Once I put it on, and now it should transmit my location.
These kinds of tracking devices have been trialled in several countries to stop people breaking lockdown rules. There's been an unprecedented rise in all kinds of tracking technology. Around 120 contact tracing apps are being used worldwide.
You kind of look like a very cautious person to me, Sam. Yeah, so what are your main concerns?
Our main concerns really are about the speed and proportionality of these new measures. We need to make sure that they're transparent, held accountable, and don't last for any longer than they're needed.
There is a danger though, isn't there, Sam, that we could, scare people and overhype this, this whole surveillance thing. Do you think it's slightly over the top and we're worrying more than we should be?
I don't think so, no. I think we need to really be careful that we don't sleepwalk into a surveillance state with tools that aren't necessarily effective for fighting back in a public health crisis.
It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. What should you be looking out for then?
So when you're looking at a privacy policy, some of the really important things to look out for is how long is your data being retained for? There should be, under GDPR, certain restrictions on how long a company or a public health body can access your information. There's other things like permissions. Now, if you look at certain apps, they will have a lot of permissions that allow the app to read other aspects of your phone. Look at your contacts, for example, as well as monitoring what you're doing online. So there are some simple steps to take that will allow you to make sure that the app you're downloading is safe.
This year has disrupted travel more than anything we've ever known. But as big as the problems are, the solutions too can be brilliant. As long as we stay careful, I'm hopeful we'll soon be out there experiencing the world again. Next this week, we're in the Swedish capital Stockholm, which is actually made up of 30,000 islands, islets and rocks jutting out into the Baltic Sea. It means there's a big maritime tradition, which if you know where to look, results in some pretty interesting souvenir shopping. We went to have a look.
My name is Freddie Brown, and I'm the owner of Fartygsmagasinet, translated the ship's warehouse. We were, since many, many years ago, engaged in dismantling ships, taking care of all the beautiful interiors. Started actually with 2 empty hands, and it became like part of myself. Today, there are no longer such ships existing. The few they are left are either museum ships or belonging to some private people. But we knew in advance that there will be a day where they're all gone. So now we consume whatever we have in our warehouse. Here we have a piece of a stay from the Cutty's Ark, including the Deadeye. So it's actually a trophy of a famous ship, I would say, next to Titanic, most well known in the whole world. One does not see to it that these things just being brutally destroyed for the future. Because all these nice interiors, if they would have been ashore in a building, they probably would have protected them. But when it came to ships, there was nobody interested. So I started to collect, first for my own, and gradually I got more and more involved. Good customers are based locally, but more than half of it from all corners of the world. Interior designers, collectors, film companies. I have a few pieces, 2 smaller figureheads, few instruments and a few models, which are more close to my heart and are not for sale.
Okay, we're on to something totally new next. Or is it something old? I can't make up my mind.
Our Future of the Past series takes a look at some of the amazing new tech scientists are using to uncover, restore and protect humanity's ancient history. We begin in northern Guatemala at the Maya Biosphere Reserve. Deep inside this vast rainforest lies the remains of one of the largest Maya cities, Tikal. At its height, maybe around 1500 years ago, it was home to as many as 90,000 people. So we sent Amanda to find out how advances in archaeology have uncovered some long-buried secrets.
One of the biggest challenges to archaeologists in the Maya Biosphere Reserve is the fact that it's extremely difficult to find or identify structures in a jungle as thick and wild as this one. And that's where a technology that's relatively new to archaeology, LiDAR, has been transformative.
So this hill is supposedly a pyramid. They think it might be maybe as big as the Great Pyramid, the Mundo Perdido. It's definitely steep, but it looks like a hill. So it's pretty amazing that they're able to find that out through LiDAR. Yeah, we're right here. Mm-hmm. So only 10% of Tikal has actually been excavated and discovered.
Falta un 90% que descubrir de Tikal.
Wow. LiDAR is a type of remote sensing technology that's used to create extraordinarily detailed 3D maps and representations. In the reserve, LiDAR is being employed in two ways: from aircraft to create topological maps, and from handheld scanners to build better 3D models of a particular site or structure. The project that involves beaming lasers from aircraft, the largest archaeological survey ever taken in the Maya lowlands, is the initiative of the Foundation for Maya Cultural and Natural Heritage, PACUNAM. And what is LiDAR exactly? What makes it such a great tool?
Well, it really strips off the forest canopy with billions of laser beams that map individually each return every time they hit something in the surface. And that will give tremendous use for understanding the forest and the biomass.
How many billions of laser beams are actually?
Well, I think our first data set had 60 billion returns. So that's an incredible amount of data.
And how long did it take to collect that?
Really, only a couple of weeks. It was something like 8 flights. It's 2,100 square kilometers of area that was covered in that amount of time.
Well, and you obviously have a great understanding of how sophisticated the Mayans were.
Yes.
But did the LiDAR increase that understanding even more?
Yes. The LiDAR showed without any doubt that we totally underestimated their engineering capabilities in terms of landscape modifications to make the land more sustainable, to irrigate, bring water to places that they could cultivate, to stop erosion.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
That's how I felt. And I thought the Maya were pretty sophisticated already, but not at this scale.
One of the sites where LiDAR has been especially helpful is El Zots.
So this was all for one king?
Yes, for the first king. You know, this king, we know they was powerful. We didn't know how the extension of their power. LiDAR now is helping us to recognize everything that this king did to protect him, his family, and his legacy. That was the creation of a dynasty.
So a find like this tells you, okay, there is a king, then the LiDAR helps you realize what the whole context is of
Yes.
the whole landscape and just how much even more wealthy and powerful he
Yes.
was than you even knew from this.
Everything that they built, we can make more sense about it.
When you got that LiDAR data back and you started to see all that stuff and put those pieces together, what did you say?
It was wonderful. I was like, oh my God, for hours. And I was like, oh my God, look at this. Oh my God, look at this. Wow. And it's very humbling because you'll be mapping and you think you know what you're doing for all my career.
Yeah.
And this thing is so much better than any of us can do. And can do what we do in 20 years in 2 days. The same work, and it's better.
With its extraordinary archaeological sites and wildlife, the Maya Biosphere Reserve has long been a major draw for travelers to Guatemala. It's thanks to LiDAR, however, that we now understand its history and its importance even more.
And if you're a history geek, we've got some more treats for you next week when Amanda heads underwater in Italy.
And finally, this week, we head to Kangaroo Island, about 70 miles from the coast of Adelaide. People come here for its seclusion, its golden beaches, and its abundance of wildlife. But last summer, it was one of the highest profile casualties in Australia's worst wildfire season on record. The flames spread over 16 million acres, mostly in the southwest of the country in New South Wales and Victoria. It destroyed thousands of homes and businesses and claimed the lives of at least 33 people. According to the WWF, it also killed or displaced as many as 3 billion animals. Here at the Kangaroo Island Wildlife Park, the owners found themselves directly in the fire's path as they fought to save some of the country's most iconic creatures.
So this little one here is Grace. So Grace came in from a road accident when her mum was unfortunately hit by a car and killed. So she's been with us for nearly 2 months now. It's really important that they do have their teddies. So she cuddles onto that, she holds onto it and sees it as her mum. It gives her comfort. If she doesn't have one, she does start looking for one. She gets quite stressy. So the building we're in at the moment is the Koala Orphanage or Koala Hospital that we've got here at the park. Hello, you two. Good girl. It holds all sorts of different animals, not just koalas, but it was established during the bushfires as a response to the need that we had.
The park was a hub for all the injured animals coming off the fire ground. At times, the flames got within a couple of kilometres, threatening the centre and everyone working there.
Obviously, because I've got little Connor, Connor and I evacuated twice. When I left the front gates, I didn't know if I was going to be coming back to absolute devastation or whether I would come back to having a business still here.
Dana's husband, Sam, took the extraordinary decision to stay behind and fight the fire. Fortunately, the centre was spared, allowing the family's work to continue.
Throughout the entire fire period of time, we ended up with over 600 koalas come through and around 150 other species. A lot of the animals that were coming in through the fires primarily presented with burns. Quite a few have had burnt down to the bone, and the best thing for them was to be euthanized. So we did lose quite a lot of them as well. But a lot of them, pretty much all of them, came in very dehydrated. So yeah, quite a large range of injuries. It's really amazing to see how well they coped with the fires and how well the ones that are still out in the wild have adapted to the changing conditions. So their habitat was completely destroyed and they've managed to pull through and be eating the regrowth rather than having to eat the established trees like usual. And they've been a lot more resilient than what was expected. So it's been awesome to see, the resilience of the Australian wildlife.
Throughout the crisis, the centre received a wave of international press coverage and donations from all over the world. The whole area got a lot of attention because of the unusual intensity of the bushfires. Nearly half the entire island burned, consuming almost all of Flinders Chase National Park. Some of the fires started here after lightning struck dry vegetation in conditions made worse by climate change.
So nearly everything went, the visitor centre, the accommodation, the rangers' houses, the university buildings, It was a very emotional experience, you know, when you love a park and you love what's here and what it represents, and then to just see it all wiped out in such a short period of time.
But an amazing recovery has begun.
So during the fires, different things cope differently. So the stringy barks that are growing here nice and tall, they have a thick bark which burns off in the fire, burns really fast, and so they shoot out lots of shoots all up the stem. So the Aussie bush needs fire to regenerate. It's a way of cleaning it up. It removes diseased wood and old wood, and a lot of things only germinate after fire. Most people won't recognise it's been a fire probably in 3-4 years' time, and then some of those species will take 10-15 years before they're actually doing a lot of seed set for the next fire.
But the recovery is far from complete. International tourism hasn't been allowed in Australia since March. So the only visitors to the island this summer are likely to be people coming from the mainland.
We were able to reopen again after COVID. South Australia was really lucky. The July holidays were really, really busy. South Australia could only travel within our state. So it was awesome to see the support. Everyone who has never been to KI came over.
The park, it's important to open because it's a major tourism attraction, and the island has two main industries, farming and tourism, so you need to have both industries flourishing for a good economy.
Right, that's your lot for this week. Coming up next week,
to the Batmobile. Krista's here to look back at some of our favourite trips to North America. From ice canoeing in Canada.
So how do you feel right now?
I need to sit down.
To paddling around the world's shipwreck capital.
And there you are, on top of this massive wreck that's been there for over 100 years.
Until then, though, from all of us looking longingly at the check-in desk here at London City Airport, it's bye-bye.